Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Fintech Talks, a Georgia Fintech Academy podcast. We are here today to talk about navigating careers from college to executive C-level leadership. We are here today to cover a little bit of insight. Obviously, we don't have hours on end of content to share with you today, but just get some highlights from the folks that we have on the line today to talk about career progression, career pathways into this exciting industry. From the Georgia Fintech Academy perspective, we encounter thousands of students each semester, and some of these conversations really supplement what they're learning in the classroom. To hear firsthand from industry leaders like Chrissy Wagner that we have on the call today from FIS. Chrissy, it's so great to have you here today.
Thanks for having me. I'm super excited about the conversation.
And then we also have Florencia, who is joining us from Georgia Gwinnett Senior. Florencia, can you just introduce yourself real quick?
Absolutely. Hi, and thank you, Miss Laura. Hi, everyone. I am Florencia Cosenza Diez. I'm a senior business student at Georgia Gwinnett College. I'm passionate about business innovation, and I'm really looking forward to learning more about building a career in fintech today.
Thank you so much, Florencia, for joining us as our student co-host today. Chrissy, can you just briefly introduce yourself and your background?
Hello, everyone. My name is Chrissy Wagner. I'm the Senior Vice President of Go-to-Market at FIS. I am super honored to be here, so thank you both. In my role at FIS, we really lead the commercialization of the automated finance product suite for our customers. And so it's exciting because we get an opportunity to really understand what our customers' needs and how we can best deliver to serve their needs. Spent my entire career in payments, over 20 years in various roles in product, corporate development, implementations, sales, and marketing. So, yeah, thanks for having me.
Chrissy, not to give a spoiler alert to our audience, I know a little bit about you and your background. What drew you into this space, into the industry in the first place?
Yeah, so it's a little bit of a personal story, and I don't mind sharing it, but I was a teen mom and just out of high school. I was on welfare and living in Section 8 housing. And at that time, the government had transitioned to providing benefits cards for the TANF benefit or the ability to buy groceries. And so I was in a major grocery store chain trying to use this card for the first time. And I thought I knew how to use it, but the cashier didn't know how to use it. And she got on the loudspeaker and said, "I need help with the welfare card. I need help with the welfare card." And it was embarrassing. And so I didn't exactly know it was fintech at the time, but I thought at that point, I definitely want to learn how to make things like that, technology and financial instruments, easier to use for people of all backgrounds. And so I decided I changed my major to information systems, management information systems, and started learning how to design. So that's kind of, again, I didn't know it was going to be fintech, but I knew that we had to make things like that easier for people so people could use and interact with financial instruments with dignity and respect.
Chrissy, I mean, honestly, that's such an incredible story. I'm thinking about right now where we are. It's financial literacy and inclusion month. And I've been personally kind of focused on having conversations around creating access, but you're talking about things that are even bigger, societal impacts, how that can make an individual feel when it comes to having that negative experience and being able to correct that. I love that that ties back to your mission and then also what you're doing at FIS. It's making a huge impact.
Thank you.
So, Francia, I know you have our first question on tap.
I do. And thank you for sharing that. It's an amazing experience. Can you tell us a little bit about your first job experience and what lessons you took from it?
Absolutely. So I have to go all the way back to high school. And in full transparency, I hustled in high school. I worked 3 jobs my senior year. And so I want to kind of draw on lessons from all three of those. One, I was a waitress part-time. And what I learned from that is how to interact with people and how to serve them with humility, because it's not so much that the customer's always right, but there is a heart posture of humility that comes with placing someone else's needs above your own in that moment. So that's what I took away from waitressing. I also had an internship in a large aerospace manufacturing organization, and I was in the finance area. That wasn't the fit for me, Florencia. I know it's your background, but it wasn't. Finance wasn't the fit for me. But what I did really learn is an early introduction to navigating corporate America, and I had an amazing mentor in that role who really, at that time, helped me understand even the role of women and leadership in the workplace, which was very different then than it is now. We're talking late 90s. So I had that early introduction, which was super critical and pivotal to my long-term success in corporate America. And then the last role was, I'd had all these jobs at the same time, mind you. The last one was working in a fast food restaurant. And my word, the pace in which you have to move in a very cheerful, mindful way when there are competing priorities all around you. What that taught me is the way you show up, not just for the customer, but for your colleagues matters. And when the squeeze is on, what comes out is really what it's who you are as a person. So foster growth inside so that when the squeeze comes, you can show up really well for your colleagues and your customers.
Oh, I love that you mentioned those. Florencia, I don't know if you have any personal experience tied to that, because for me, I served some restaurants when I was in college and in high school, and all the things that you picked up on. I think of also conflict management. I've had to manage, the customer is always right. You know what I mean? And kind of showing up with grace and with positivity when you don't feel like it. A lot of those like soft skills are kind of developed in those types of roles. And for many of our students, they discount some of that experience, especially on the resume, because it's so limited. They're like, oh, I don't want to show Pizza Hut, or I don't want to show, Arby's. And I'm like,
Right?
but there's so much meaningful experience that you could capture.
I couldn't agree. I could not agree more. Absolutely. It forms you
Absolutely.
as a person.
Yeah.
And I do have an experience. I think that everyone should experience customer service at some point in their lives. I always say that. And currently, I'm working front desk as a front desk associate at a dealership, a personal watercraft dealership. So I can tell you from experience, definitely it builds up your personality. Yes, it's a challenging but rewarding experience, I want to say.
Yeah.
Yes.
And it sounds like, Chrissy, you had so many different experiences that have, contributed to how you've developed as a professional over the years. But do you have any like one moment or a pivotal moment that really was influential and helped you navigate your career pathway towards leadership?
Absolutely. So I would say it's about not quite midway in my career, just a little short of that. I had a leader who I didn't actually work for her at the time, but she saw something in me and she invested. And eventually I did go to work for her. And I think it was largely her belief in my ability and the way that she would stretch my skills and my learning and give me those stretch projects and trust me with them. At the time, I was a single mom and I was working on my master's at that point, and so lots of demands on my time. And yet she was still, you got this, you can do this, you can do more than you think. And that inspiration and belief in me made, I think, a huge difference. It encouraged me to continue to finish my master's and to take the leap in that next role. And I really think my career trajectory skyrocketed from there. So, and I've had many amazing people to support me. I believe in the village and the team dynamic, and everyone, women or men, really do need to have mentors and sponsors along the way in their career. But this one in particular changed everything for me because it was getting hard. It,
Yeah.
it's like I've been climbing this mountain. It's really difficult. So it was at the right time and it was what I needed. And it really did catapult my career.
I mean, Chrissy, so many good points that you made there, from, mentorship to sponsorship. You also kind of highlighted the one of the themes that I'm seeing when we talk about creating inclusive workspaces, which is that you were a mother. And I always wondered, like, how do people balance that when you are a hustler, which you've already kind of proven at the start of this conversation. We talked through your experience leading into your, career pursuits. But like, how do you navigate that? And what should organizations, I know it's a loaded question, but what should organizations consider to really make an inclusive environment space for folks who are ambitious and want to amplify and move up in their career, but they also have family and other commitments that they have to consider?
It is a bit of a loaded question because I do think times are evolving and changing. I think there's more awareness than ever before on the needs of the working family and gender roles and dynamics and all of that. I see so much improvement, but I do think and I haven't always done this right, admittedly. Like there are times in my career where I look back and I wish I had not skewed so much toward work and I missed out on things with my family. And then there are times when I did make the right call and I did take the road less traveled. One instance was stepping away from a very fast paced, high growth career. Like I was in a particular role that was fast tracked and I had to step back from that because I needed to take care of my family. And that was a scary time. So to answer your question about what organizations can do, I think is just continue to drive awareness to the family dynamic because when people are supported at home, whether they're single moms or married or children or taking care of elderly parents, it may not be about children. When people feel supported, they can there's more space for them to bring their best selves to the workplace. And when there's flexibility, which I think, again, there's more flexibility than ever before. But when there's that flexibility, hybrid work when you work best type of hours, and people are high performing, ambitious, and can be trusted to get the job done, you should let them do the
Yeah.
job when it suits them. I would go to work. I would do schoolwork early in the morning. I'd leave work early, get my kids, do homework, do dinner, do errands with them, sports, and then I'd log back in at night to finish my work day. And had I not had that experience, it would have been very difficult because I have 5 kids. So they're all much older now, but I had 5 kids. So I was very fortunate. Not everyone has that experience, but I do think organizations just being mindful that people work best when they feel supported and they will bring their best selves and it will impact the bottom line in a positive way when you allow that freedom and space to do so.
Chrissy, you're such a role model. I mean, I love what you're highlighting. And, to your point, also, it's not necessarily just one scenario. There's lots of different structures, caring for your elders. There's so many different commitments that we have as human beings. And to be mindful of that is really important. Florencia, you got our next question teed up, I think.
Yeah, so for students who are new to fintech, what's one change in payments that they should be excited about?
Oh my goodness.
Well, and Chrissy, maybe this is also tying into, we've seen so many different announcements from not only FIS, but from in your space. Obviously, there's a sale of WorldPay. There's new product launches that you guys have been presenting. There's been a lot of marketing around what you guys are doing in your space. Is there anything that you would summarize or say, like this particular niche or vertical is something interesting that students should explore?
Well, so there's a couple of ways I can approach this one, but I will start by, I think more broadly, Florencia, what we're seeing is, and this may touch on your question too, Laura, we're seeing this move back to the basics by the large, it's global players, where at one time it might have been scale at all costs or scale as a differentiator. Scale is still important, don't get me wrong, and it does reflect the core of competency, capability, operational efficiency when you have an organization that's operating at scale successfully. But the risk is that your product, service, the customer needs, the customer you're serving gets diluted. And I do think we're seeing a shift back to, and smaller fintech startups and scale ups, newer fintechs, I think get this right. It's the ones that have been in this industry for decades, the market makers that are getting back to the basics. And I think that's a big trend of like, what customer problem are we solving? Let's get busy let's be the best of the best at that. So that, broadly speaking, I think is a shift that we're seeing. And for folks new to fintech or moving into fintech, I would say this, even if that wasn't the dynamic at play today. Know who the customer is that you are serving, and also know what your role is in achieving the company's objectives. Because it can be really easy for an entry level, new to fintech, new to a company to think, well, especially if it's a large company, but even in smaller companies to think, well, my role, I'm just a level one analyst. I'm just an entry level programmer. How do I make a difference? But actually, it's every single person's responsibility to help the company achieve their objectives. Or if you're starting something, you would live every day trying to achieve an objective because this is your company. So thinking like an owner, thinking like a true stakeholder in the company's mission, I think is fundamental at the start of like practicing that, because it does take practice. It's super easy when you're young, especially like new, starting out. I don't mean young age wise, but when you're new to a particular field or industry, it's super easy just to, I just have a job to do and I want to be good at this job. That's important, but look around you and understand how you fit. And if you don't know, that should be a question you have with your manager.
Yeah.
Where do I fit in the corporate scheme? How is what I'm doing helping achieve objectives? That's super important. And it shouldn't be a one-time conversation at the end of the year when you're doing an evaluation. It should be, I know every single day that I'm on a mission for something. And that's I think super critical when you're starting out. It will serve you well throughout your
Yeah.
career.
Yeah, I don't know, Florencia, how you feel about that. So I know from a student perspective, I've had many different resume kind of reviews, and that question always comes up. How do we translate what it is that you focused on, what you did, to the bigger picture? What were the business objectives? Are there metrics, that you contributed towards demonstrating success? Do you feel like as a student, you feel, empowered, or you guys are thinking about like the bigger picture versus the task at hand?
Absolutely. I think particularly I am very I like to think a few steps forward and ahead. So I would like to say yes. In my case, I started with finance, and I think that is super important to understand basic concepts. But kind of what I was mentioning earlier, I became more passionate about supply chain, logistics, and I still think it's important to understand finance, and I still think it's important to of those basic concepts. But it will also help. I think that career helps you, the college helps you mold who you are and what you like. Understanding that, accepting that, I think it's very important because when you find yourself in any job, it's important, kind of what Chrissy was mentioning, to understand what you're supposed to be doing in that role, because you will be better contributing to that and you will feel more successful if you know where you are, what you like. It's I think it's very important as a student to understand what your career where your career is going, and understanding if you have to change, it's okay.
You know, Florencia, you said something about knowing what you like, and if I could just offer a few thoughts on that. I actually think it's given the strategic shifts that I just mentioned about, back to basics for many fintechs. Develop a domain expertise in something that you enjoy. Because even though career arcs, they don't work the same way they used to. It used to be you get in a job like, let's just take finance, and you just, you climb, our parents, our grandparents, you climb the corporate ladder this way. My career has gone zig, zag, back, forward, side. I mean, it's
Yeah.
like the Cupid shuffle. I'm telling you, it's that windy navigating road of just, and you don't necessarily know what's around the corner always, but if you can develop an expertise in something that you enjoy, even while at the same time keeping your eyes open to learning other things, that will serve your career growth very well. As a young person, as a college student coming out, starting their career, being open-minded, but develop a competency in something, because you can fall back on that, right? And so often we can leverage that in different ways, whether you're in a startup, whether you're in a big company, whether you decide to go consultancy. There's so many ways that you can leverage that domain expertise, but have a foundation in something and develop that over time. Get better and better and better at it. Become known for this thing. And that doesn't have to lock you into one laddered career. It can still serve you on this, on the Cupid shuffle.
I love the cubic shuffle and I love the reference. Well, because Chrissy, I'm also thinking about in your background, you've had, marketing, product, sales, like you just like adding things obviously within the same industry vertical, like you have your focus and you're building your subject matter expertise, but you have such an extensive variety of things in your toolbox. And how has that contributed to where you are now, kind of sitting and influencing strategy, large scale organization, go to market, influencing so much and having so much responsibility, but has having that diversity and experience set you up for success at that level?
It doesn't work for everyone. I mean, I think, it really does matter what is the level of risk taking as a person, the tolerance you have for risk taking. I mean, Laura, I have taken gigs where I'm like, what in the world am I doing? I have no clue what is going on. That I experienced that when I moved from the issuing side to the merchant acquiring side. I thought everybody on my team was speaking a foreign language. I had imposter syndrome big time, even though I had been recruited by an executive search firm. I was scared out of my mind. Like, I don't have a clue how I'm going to do this job. So the tolerance for, the courage versus risk taking, everybody has their own formula for what they're comfortable doing. In my case, it was take the risk. I knew that I had a competency in learning new things quickly and being able to get to what is it we need to do. Developing strategies, a competency of mine. It's one of my top strength finders. I also knew that I am an accomplisher. I am a getter doner, and I will figure out how to get something done and make a difference for the company. So I had to rely on my skill set, but there was a ton of fear involved. But it has, I think, served me well because the way the brain operates and elasticity of the brain, I can pick up something new and go try and figure that thing out. And I'm not as scared as I once was because I've seen it turn out well. And it doesn't mean every decision was great. It doesn't mean I always was uber successful in every one. I think that's another part. What is your tolerance for? Maybe you won't be successful in that thing, but you will learn something. So can you be okay with, I wasn't the best at that. I'm not going to do that one again. I'm going to go try something else. And again, everyone has their tolerance for that. And there's the whole element of, what can I learn from this situation? So I don't want to say this is the only way. Taking risks is the only way. It's not. It was my way of being able to navigate career. And now I can just about pick up any kind of problem statement and try and figure out a way out of it. And I actually think it's kind of fun. If
Yeah.
something is wrong, not to my brain. But I hope that answers your question. It is an element of just being open and saying yes. Like, yes, I'll try it. I might not like it and I might not be the best at it, but I'll try it and see, and I'll come back to you and let you know if it should be me or not.
Yeah.
I will be
Yeah.
the one to kill that thing. I will say, yeah,
Yeah.
no, this isn't me. So I hope that helps.
No, it's very brave to put yourself out there to take those risks. And I think for some of our students, and Florencia, not to make you speak on behalf of all students, but is there a little bit of fear in the uncertainty? Like you're going into, this new role, this new internship. You don't really know what's on the other side. They tell you as much as they can during the interview process. But is there a little bit of fear and apprehension of like failure and like what if that looks negatively upon you? How does that emotionally for you?
Absolutely. And thank you so much for asking that question. Yes, there's definitely imposter syndrome is real.
Yeah.
I can say that. I think we're always going to be afraid of pursuing new projects, and that's a good thing. Challenge is what makes you grow, in my opinion. And I think that it is really important, going back to what we were saying earlier, having a mentor or even a sponsor, the different words, but having someone in that field that can guide you, that you can ask them questions, that you can have a coffee, a one on one,
Yeah.
it will help that fear be a little bit less strong. It's always going to be there, and that's okay. Being uncomfortable makes you grow, I think. I think that for many students, and of course I cannot speak for everyone, but it's taking that first step when you get that internship. That first internship is the scariest one, just because you just don't know what to expect. I think it's that first day you're absorbing so much content, and it's okay. And knowing that it will be okay, and that you'll should rely on your teammates and ask questions, and it's okay. It's okay if you fail, you learn from it.
That's right.
Yeah.
And one thing I always remember whenever and I still get afraid at times, like things will come across my desk and I'm like, how, what, how, why? I'll just say, remember for you, Florencia, and for all the students that might be listening, you are not what you do for work. It doesn't define you. So if you can find a way to create space in your own heart and mind for this is what I do for work. It's okay if something doesn't happen right. It's okay if I fail at something. That's not me. I'm not a failure. I failed at this thing, this task, this project, but it doesn't mean I am a failure. And I have had to practice that over the years. It doesn't always come easily, but I think been able to develop a healthier relationship with my work because I create that separation now. It's not a reflect like I am a human being with very multidimensional human being. Of course, I want to do well at work, but that's only one dimension of who I am as a person. So I have my work. I might fail at something at work, but I'm not a failure as a person. So there is an element that comes with maturing over time to learn how to create that space for yourself. But it's important because then it affects your ability and willingness to take on new projects and take on risk and be open to new experiences when you realize there's a bit of separation. I can almost like you have an alter ego. You're still the one person, but my alter ego might be willing to try this project even if I don't know what the outcome will be.
It's so powerful. I mean, honestly, I feel like I wish someone had told me that when I started off my career. It was so centered around my job. I became completely absorbed. I was so, highly motivated. And for me, I made a lot of sacrifices and made some life decisions based on my ambitions career wise. So thinking about what you just said, I don't think we've ever had anyone highlight that or mention that on a previous podcast for the Academy, but that's something that's so crucial. And I think right now we talk a lot more about mental health and just being aware of ourselves as individuals, how we treat others as human beings, like you mentioned. And that element is something that we're having conversations about today. But I feel like 20 years ago, not to date myself, we weren't talking about that.
We weren't. And Laura, we were in the same boat 20 years ago. Like it's been over time just trying to develop a healthy balance with my ambition in my life because ambition it's part of me. It's something. I'm a driven person, so of course I want to do well, but again, what the outcome of that doesn't define who I am as a person. And it has taken a lot of work to be in this place, and so I only share it in this podcast because we're hopefully young people are listening and just remember, like, it's not even about balance anymore, work-life balance. It's the integration of who you are as a person, and how you want to show up for people and what sacrifices are you willing to make intentionally and own those sacrifices. Like, that's okay. Own that, but create space for yourself to be well during the process. I think that's important.
Yeah. Create space for you to be well. I mean, this is such a great way to wrap up our conversation. We covered so much. Talking about your backgrounds, your career kind of journey and progression, the things that you're working on at FIS, and then we're closing out with some real meaningful insights on how people should be thinking about their careers and about themselves individually. Is there any other recommendations that you would provide for our students? We're actually about to reach, it's kind of graduation phase for us right now across the university system. I know today and tomorrow is Georgia Tech, but we got Georgia State. I know Georgia Gwinnett is like a fast follower, but all these universities are transitioning students, graduating classes. Any recommendations that you have or last thoughts that you would have to provide some guidance to these students as they move forward post-graduation?
Yeah, it ties to some of what we've already talked about, but because we've said, be bold, be open to change, be willing to take a risk. I would say, and it's one of the things I look for actually when I'm interviewing candidates, I look for tenacity. Be tenacious, be willing to lean in and try and figure out how to solve a problem without having to be told, go figure out this problem. There's a bit of initiative that is super important, I think, in any field, not just in fintech, but I think it serves the fintech space well. But if I were to close out with one final thought, it would be bring people on the journey with you. We talked about mentors and sponsors investing in you, but also there's an element of how you invest in others. And it doesn't just have to be someone who's a couple steps behind you, like, oh, at some point I'll be ready to mentor someone else. It's not just in that direction. It's also, invest in your leadership, invest in yourself, invest in your peers, bring people on the journey. So if you are uber ambitious, and this is speaking from my own story, the temptation might be to just drive. I have to produce results. I have to this, or my team has to do this. We have to get these things done. Boom, boom, boom. And then you neglect to bring people on the journey with you, the surrounding teams, the stakeholders involved, people that you depend on to support, people who are depending on you to deliver. And you isolate yourself in a way that's just laser focused on producing a result. So just remember, the what you do, the results you produce, and how you do it are equally important. Equally important. You can achieve all the goals you set out for yourself, and if you do it at the expense of your own wellness or the wellness of people around you, you're missing something. Likewise, if you only focus on people and you don't actually drive toward productivity, you're going to have a problem, because so there's a balance of what you deliver and how you show up and deliver those things, and how you engage others around you. Super important. So practice the balance of that, even when you're early stage starting out your career. Practice that.
Oh, that's good stuff. Chrissy, thank you so much for sharing your insights, a little bit about your background and your journey. This is inspiring not only for, I think, our students who are earlier in their careers, but even professionals at various levels, to hear some of the insights that you shared today. So thank you very much for that. Florencia, thank you so much for joining. I don't know if you have any last thoughts before we close.
No, it's just thank you everyone for listening, and also be sure to join this episode, YouTube, Spotify, and everywhere you get your podcast. Thank you so much, Miss Laura. Thank you so much, Miss Chrissy. I appreciate your expertise in this wild journey that is becoming a young professional.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Florencia. And as Florencia mentioned, you can check out this content and more like this coming up on the Georgia Fintech Academy Fintech Talks in the future. So we look forward to seeing you guys later. Thank you.